So, hello, Kelvin. I know that I think all the membership will know you, but maybe if you briefly introduce yourself, your job, your background.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Kelvin Williams. I've spent my career in occupational hygiene consultancy. I kicked off as a junior asbestos monitoring technician, which back in the day was the lowest of the low. I was encouraged at the time to stick with consultancy. Somebody told me life, and it has proved to be so. Indeed, it's been a great 30 years. Been in all kinds of workplaces, sectors, scenarios, looking at a huge range of issues. One day quarrying, then looking at marijuana exposure to the police force, then people exposed to kind of potpourri, death, doom and gloom. If there was such a thing, actually there is. People manufacturing rockwool, cutting wood, making cupcake cases, birthday cakes, and goodness knows whatever else. It's been an interesting 30 years for sure.
But then nothing could have prepared you for the year that you've had as president so far.
Well, I might contradict you here, but that's over a Friday afternoon pint, I think.
No, it's been a really interesting year.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, sort of, we can't ignore COVID. What are your perspectives on this year then?
Well, I think my perspective on it, it's well, some people say, it's been a bit tough for you coming into the presidency year with all this going on, and I appreciate what they're saying, but it is one of these issues where it's like the worst of times and the best of times, insofar as you can see, the storm clouds gathering. There's Klingons on the starboard bow. What are we going to do? And it strikes you that what you do over the next few months will have lasting repercussions, something which has the potential to be looked back on with much satisfaction a few years down the road. And so launching into it with all those kind of things in mind, and sure enough, here we are, like 8-9 months later, and it has been a privilege indeed to have been president in this year and presided over some of the things which have gone on, which have happened to the benefit of the BOHS. So I would say, all in all, it's been satisfying. It's been good. It's been a privilege. In terms of my other perspectives, like on the role, I think one of the advantages of the president role is you tend to get an overview of everything that's going on across the board, and so you don't just see like the volunteer effort and the expertise and the technicality and the goodwill of volunteers and putting their shoulders to the wheel to help the OHS community respond to the pandemic, but you also see the head office responding in a way that perhaps the other membership don't. So you've been able to see them, transferring to home working, extremely a short notice, having to cope with a flood, which knocked out our server, putting all the qualifications online, coping at short notice with organizing 2 virtual conferences, and all that goes with that. And there's other things as well. And plus, we finished the year in a financially strong position as well. What a result! What a performance! And so I think one of the privileges of being present again is to see that, as well as the efforts made by the professional occupational hygiene community. It's been good.
Well, that's great to hear. And I mean, in terms of what this year sort of tells us, if you like, about the future of the society, have we learned something about what the future looks like from this year's experience?
Yes, yeah. I think there are some things which which the year has helped to crystallize. So it'll be well known that one of the reasons I got involved with BOHS board was to try and improve professional standards and competency in consultants and all the rest of it, and to try and it's a phrase I wrote a couple of years ago about trying to realize a higher vision of what the occupational hygiene profession. It's a bit of a clunky phrase on reflection, but but the gist of it is true enough. And I think this year has brought together expertise from like the public health side, from academia, from industry, from the consultancy sector, and so forth, and approached the whole problem in a way which has been well beyond how we say traditionally see ourselves as monitoring occupational hygiene survey people, giving some recommendations, LAV, and all those things are great. But it has been a higher level of engagement than the profession's been used to. Plus, we've drawn on a wide range of expertise there as well. And I think that reminds me of something which I've been cogitating on for a few months. It was a line in an email from Robin Howie, God bless him, who said, "Do you know, we are the British Occupational Hygiene Society, and not so much the British Occupational Hygienists Society." Simple phrase, very profound, and has guided a lot of thinking ever since. So insofar as we can draw the attention of other professions, be they psychologists, mental health people, ergonomists, and so on and so forth, who wouldn't necessarily see themselves as occupational hygienists, but are nevertheless doing occupational hygiene. So they've been engaged with us over the last year. I trust they've had the benefit of doing so. But fostering those relationships, including via the leverage of better engagement in higher education, for example, and getting occupational hygiene on the agenda of other degree courses elsewhere. I think it's opened our eyes, lifted our eyes from our feet, I think, and look at the horizon afresh as to what we can be and what we're about as a society.
And do you think that the society is perceived differently now from where it would have been perceived maybe 12 months ago?
The answer to that is a simple yes. But we do have, a way to go for sure. And, just some things I've come across in the last month of my professional life. I'm conscious that people either, it would be fair to say, have quite a low regard for what occupational hygiene is. I think because they're so used to seeing occupational hygiene in the context of somebody turning up with a pump and a sound level meter and doing some technical survey and writing a brief technical report, and off they go. And that has been their experience. That's been their interaction with the profession to date. So there's still a way to go, but we are definitely on the right trajectory to correcting that impression.
So what are the key lessons that we've learned out of this kind of? We've made some changes. What should we learn as a society? What should head office be learning? What should we do more of?
Well, I think one of the key lessons we can take away is that we should be more forthright and confident about the case that we are making. That's what we're about. Prevention is better than cure. Yeah. Sounds simple, but that's what we're about, and as the pandemic illustrated like nothing else, the importance of that particular phrase. And as we've engaged with various stakeholders through the pandemic and offered guidance, support, or collaborated, whatever it happens to be, we have found an ear for what we have to say, and that includes, at high levels of government and also in the press. So I think we should, I was going to use the word be less apologetic. That would be a bit harsh, but I think we need to be a lot more confident and forthright about making our case at whatever level, because what we stand for and what we can achieve for the UK society is real, it's meaningful, and we don't need to be shy from projecting the message out there.
And we're seeing in more and more BOHS materials this term sustainable workplace health. What does that terminology mean to you? What do you take from it?
To reflect on that phrase, I like the phrase because I think it encompasses many things that we're trying to help the UK workforce with. My experience, let me just give a bit of my experience of that. So I'll go to some factory and they say, like, we've got an occupational health program, we're doing this, that, and the other, well-being, so on and so forth. And that will mean that somebody will come in once a year, get the blokes to stand on a weighing scale, get them to blow in a bag. And if you go to the canteen, you'll find a box of fruit there. So they're getting their 5 a day. And the companies, and justifiably proud that these are all good things to do. But all the while, I go on the shop floor then and find they're pumping, tons of dust into the guy's lungs. So So what good is having the 5 a day and getting someone to stand on a weighing scales? But the overwhelming investment in occupational health is towards things like getting people to eat their 5 a day, stand on a scale, speak to the nurse, and so forth. And the figures in terms of occupational health disease and doom and gloom are there for everyone to see. We are not making inroads into occupational disease in this country, despite this overwhelming investment in the traditional, if you want to put it that way, approach to occupational health. Now, I see this in one of the major projects I'm involved with at the moment, a huge project, thousands of staff involved, several dozen safety advisors, several dozen occupational health practitioners, a couple of dozen environmental managers, let alone the technicians, about 2 occupational hygienists amongst all this. Now, is there not something wrong with that? So, like I said, prevention is better than cure, and we're putting all this money, all this investment into the cure, and as I say, the figures speak for themselves. It is not a sustainable way of managing the health of our workforce. Endless investment in all these kind of treatments and assessments, wherever else, while all the while paying scant attention to what's happening at the coalface, where people are picking up the exposures that are going to cause those diseases that we're spending all this money treating later on. It's a simple argument. I know that between you and I, Kevin, I know that we've made this argument in some senior places, and it's gaining traction for sure. We have people's ear on this, and I hope that we can leverage what we've done in the pandemic, towards those ends of benefiting this country with a more sustainable approach to how occupational health is done.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the fascinating thing is the opportunities to look at designing out sort of health risks and thinking beyond the immediate costs to the employer and thinking about the sort of costs to the public purse and stuff like that. So it's a really, it's an idea that's of its time, and it's kind of taken over from the view that I think sort of put the dampers on occupational hygiene in the 60s, that occupational hygiene was something about monitoring, and it was something that occupational health people did. So how does the society's strategy, the new strategic aims that we're working to, push this idea of occupational hygiene further into the future? How do we make more of this, do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think like one of the primary things in the strategy is a cause dear to my heart, and that's to do with standards, professional standards. We are going nowhere unless we focus in a concerted way on professional standards over the next few years. If we want to shake off this idea that we're just a bunch of technicians running around with pumps, we're going to have to focus on this, and not just like in the sense of our internal qualifications for BOHS are important, of course, but just like coming back to a point I made a few minutes ago, that we're about the science of occupational hygiene wherever that happens to crop up. And so, and if we can engage with other disciplines, I mean, we've talked about, for example, having occupational hygiene modules built into traditional existing degrees, whether that's Chem-Eng or civil engineering or wherever it happens to be, and getting people within those professions to see it as something which is a professional occupation, a professional pursuit, not just putting pumps about. Then we'll be doing ourselves a favor on that. But that's not going to be achieved unless we have closer links with higher education, a focus on professional standards, unless we build all that up where people know there's an occupational hygienist walking through the door. What comes to their mind when they think occupational hygiene is quite different to what's been on their mind over the last however many years.
And you've had a busy presidency, and I think very few people will ever really understand how much the presidential trio and the board and the expert groups actually put in terms of time and effort into the last few months. And obviously I'm new to the society, but I've never seen anything like it from a bunch of volunteers in terms of professional contribution. So hopefully in a few months' time, when you hand over the presidency, you've got your period as past president, but then looking into the future, in 5 years' time, Now, what are the key achievements? What are the key measures of the society's success that you'd like to be seeing? What's the vision at the end of the tunnel?
Okay.
When we meet up for a pint or something and
Right.
discussing how good it all works.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What comes to mind when people meet the term occupational hygiene? If that's different to what it is today, and in the sense that we've been talking about, then I think we'll have done our job. For occupational hygiene to be a familiar term at all levels, high levels, low levels, throughout industry, throughout not just industry, I mean, in the broader like a workforce, and whoever stakeholder there is out there with an interest in the workforce, they know what occupational hygiene is about, and they have a very high regard of it as a professional pursuit. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. I mean, we've wrestled with like the word hygiene for, I don't know, since as long as I've been in the job. We haven't come up with a better word. So I think we need to come up with a way of making people react differently when they hear that word, as opposed to trying to change the word, if you like.
Absolutely, giving a new meaning and significance to an
Absolutely.
existing.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. Thank you for that.